Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Shannon Attaway, Head of Events Marketing at Wealth Engine, and I'd like to welcome you to our virtual event. Today's presentation will detail key enhancement recently released by Wealth Engine. You'll also get a demonstration, and we'll show you how these product improvements will enhance your workflows. Before we get started, I'd like to remind you that we are recording this session, therefore your phone lines are muted. A link to the recording as well as the PowerPoint slides will be available approximately 24 hours after the webinar. Throughout the presentation, you are welcome to address your questions via the question and answer box, and our staff will try to answer them as we go. We will also address as many questions as we possibly can during the Q&A portion of this webinar. At this time, I'm pleased to introduce our presenter for today's webinar, Wealth Engine's Elizabeth Schiffman, Director of Product Management. Thank you for joining us today, Elizabeth.
Great, thank you, Shannon. And so as we get started today, I just want to go ahead and make sure that everyone who's joining us today can see everything on our screen. And I want to go ahead and just take the opportunity to say thank you all for joining us today. So this is actually a series of webinars that we like to produce here at Wealth Engine. We do have a kind of a cadence of doing these, and these are particularly done post-release. So typically when we have a bunch of different releases and we're rolling out some new enhancements to the product, we would like to then go ahead and share those with your customers. And so in doing that, we've kind of named these as our product updates, and really to keep you connected to us and stay informed in terms of what's happening here at Wealth Engine. So today, what we're going to do is I'm going to cover some of the key improvements and new features within FindWealth 8. And what I really wanted to discuss is spend time today talking to you about WeProspect and suppression within WeProspect. Then I'll be addressing some of the specialty search areas, in particular the news that you've all, I'm sure, heard hopefully around DataQuick, Property Finder, and our additional real estate search tools within the specialty search area. And then I'll be covering some of the FindWealth 8 enhancements that we've made to the tool most recently, some of those features that may make your lives a bit easier in terms of workflows and understanding some of the changes we've made there. So then I'll just take the time and go into FindWealth 8, do a live demo to show you a bit about how you're using suppression and touch on some of these other enhancements within the actual product. So throughout the presentation, I'd love for you to send any questions you have. We'll make sure and save time at the end to address questions that have been sent in so that we can hopefully get all of your answers provided here on the webinar today. So with that, I want to go ahead and just kind of get started. And today you all just have the fortune of just having me on this webinar. John Funch, who is our Senior VP of Products, is usually also on these webinars. But today it is just me. But as a product team and a product manager here at Wealth Engine, it's important that you know as our customers that we are always trying to innovate for you and listening certainly to the different features and enhancements that you'd like to see within the product. We have a number of features and requests that come through to us, so we are certainly not short on items within our pipeline of what we're working on. But we are always, fortunate enough to learn more from our customers and would love to hear any additional feedback you have. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started on the WeProspect and suppression. And for those of you that might not know, WeProspect, I just want to touch a little bit about what this offering is within FindWealth 8 and what this tool is. So it really is a powerful way for you to be able to create your own list in a simplified fashion. And as you do that, you can actually build out your list based on different criteria that you define. You see here on the screen there's different core attribute information such as a geographic location or area you're searching for, certain age groups that you're looking for and ranges of age, as well as in particular our certain scores, so looking at people that are a net worth of X amount or greater, and then down to detailed attributes on them. So from here, you're able to really build out your criteria and your query based on all of that additional information. And then you can see add additional contact information. So searching for people that we have email addresses on or phone numbers on, so you can very specifically narrow down your list. And really, what you're able to do is customize that query so that you are pulling in all this additional information. And so, we have demographic information such as the age, gender, marital status of an individual, and then down to all of these detailed attributes. And those are things such as lifestyle events, lifestyles, life events, interests that an individual may have, and other information. So we'll get a little bit more in depth in that. One of the things that I will show you later, but you see here within the screen, is we have added a new feature to the WeProspect tool to make it easier to understand just how many attributes Wealth Engine has and how to use that list in a functional way and be able to clearly identify what items we have and what groupings and subgroupings they're listed under. So when you log in to WeProspect, you can click on the Attribute List tab, and from there, all of the different attributes will be displayed by category and then subcategory. So it's a great way of being able to certainly jump back and forth between your query builder and the attribute list. As you scroll through your attribute list, you can use your Control Find feature on your keyboard to search for a certain word, and then from there, click on the particular attribute listing, and that will bring you back into the query builder. So it really is a great way of being able to find what you're looking for in a simple fashion. One of the key things we've done is really, as we initially launched WeProspect, we've continued to build out this platform and product and adding different features to it to really make your lives easier and to make sure that we have a complete offering. So the latest feature we've added to WeProspect is suppression. Now, what suppression means in adding that, as you can see, we have a simple on-off button for turning suppression on and off when you'd like to use it and when you care not to use it when you're pulling your list. And we also have a great suppression list manager, which enables you to really look at all the lists you have, upload new lists, and manage all of that criteria in one simple area. So really, now with WeProspect, we have suppression. And in adding suppression, there's a few different things that we've added in particular. So there's kind of 3 different ways that you can use suppression within the tool of WeProspect. One is certainly using the attribute for the Do Not Mail list. So one of our key data sources that we use and we include within WeProspect is Do Not Mail. That is an attribute you can select while you're building a query, and that's one way of suppressing those individuals that happen to be on that Do Not Mail list. Another way that is new is obviously previously purchased lists. So lists that you may have purchased already with WeProspect, those lists that may be displayed and saved within your My Results section in your prospect list. So you can make sure and suppress any of those previously searched lists. And then the greatest feature is really the ability to upload and manage your own house files. So when we say that, what we mean is that you can actually upload lists of individuals that you may already have that weren't generated through Wealth Engine or through WeProspect. So perhaps it could be just some of the individuals from your database or other individuals. You could, quite frankly, upload your entire CRM or DMS listing of individuals if you wanted to. We'll get into a little bit more of what those limits are in talking here, but really you can see the key benefits of suppression for you as a customer is, one, this is a value add for you. There is no additional charge. When you have WeProspect turned on and activated for your account, you can go ahead and see that suppression is available and ready to use there, and just with the click of the button, turn that on. So again, there's no additional cost to this. It is included as a benefit of WeProspect. And the key thing, obviously, in saying that is that you're never going to have to pay for anyone that you already have, right? So when you're prospecting, the whole point is to find new individuals that you don't know and that meet certain criteria that you're looking for. And we want to make sure that we are enabling you to find net new individuals and not people that you've already found or have a relationship with. So certainly it eliminates, any unwanted prospects or known customers that you have, and it really lets you maximize your targets and your reach, making sure that you're focused on the right individuals, and specifically the right individuals for whatever, mailing or event or whatever purpose it is that you're looking for these new individuals. The key thing, obviously, with suppression is that you can suppress against any list, so whether it's a list that you've already purchased through WeProspect or a list that you upload, and you can suppress up to 1 million records. So that is our limitation right now in terms of records that you can suppress against, but it is an awful lot of records. And in terms of engineering and really how it works, it's pretty amazing, but there's basically 3 basic components. So you have the ability to turn on and off suppression when you're using WeProspect in the tool. You have your suppression list uploader, and that list uploader allows you to upload any lists that you may have that you want to use to suppress against, and that's up to 1 million records. And then you have your suppression list manager, and that's where you can see all of the different lists in your queue that you've uploaded. And you can also see, other lists such as your WeProspect lists that are saved. So in terms of the process, really, you'll see as I go into the live demo later, but you're going to select or upload your own list to the list manager that you'd like to use. Then you will pick the suppression lists that you'd like to make sure are active at that point in time and build your query against those suppression lists. So as you start to build your query and you add in those different attributes, you'll see in the back end what's happening with the technology behind it is we are actually suppressing against those records and doing it live while you're adding to the query and building your query. And so you'll see those counts on the list displayed as you continue to enter different parameters for your search. And from there, once you are satisfied with your list, you can purchase your list and download your new prospects. So that, in essence, is how suppression works. There's a few things I just wanted to pull up in terms of kind of some of the frequently asked questions that are, certainly have come up and have been asked by individuals. So let me just make sure that I think there's a little bit of a lag with the screens. Okay, yep. So here is just some questions I want to address. So basically, in terms of size limit, we talked about the 1 million aggregate limit for suppressing against 1 million records at a time. Per list, so per list there is a limit of 100,000 records per suppression list. So that means obviously you can have multiple suppression lists up to that 1 million, but each list you're including can have a maximum of 100,000 records. In terms of the formats of lists that you may be uploading to suppress, we accept all of the standard formats, but CSV files, Excel files, types delimited, you can see all those different options. And the fields that we require for any uploaded list that's going to be used against suppression are really the first name, last name, address one, city, state, and zip. So very basic, your name and your address information in that list. That's what we need to actually use in the search and suppress against those records. So what happens really is that sometimes, obviously, there are multiple individuals that have multiple properties. So an individual may have more than one address. And when that happens, you may have actually only sent us one address for that individual on your suppression list. What happens is, because we are suppressing against our Wealth Engine core data, our master file of core data, we actually are able to suppress against all other addresses that are linked to that individual. So let's say that you have on your suppression list Bill Smith, who has a Florida address, but he also owns a property in Pennsylvania. If we have those profiles linked on the back end, we're able to suppress the Pennsylvania record as well as any records that are tied to that Florida address. And then, of course, with list matching, what I would just want to say is that sometimes, obviously, there are times when there's two records that may look very similar. And when that happens, we're going to always choose one record. And the record that we choose is going to be based on the match logic and certainly which record is greater in terms of the criteria that's been entered. So moving along, I want to jump into talking about specialty search and DataQuick and give a little bit of background information on this for those of you that may know about this tool and feature within FindWealth 8 and those of you that may not. I know I've personally talked to a number of you in terms of feedback and hearing about your pain points and certainly the importance of this tool that we have within FindWealth 8 available for our customers. So just if you haven't heard, we are happy to announce that we have brought back DataQuick Property Finder within our specialty search area of FindWealth 8. And so we recently, in August, had actually announced some changes that were being made with CoreLogic, the company that provides this tool and access to us. And so really what we want to do is just kind of share with you the story of what's happened here and why we've brought this back. Right now, if you do log into FindWealth 8 and you go to the specialty search area, you'll see everyone has access to both our CoreLogic property search and the DataQuick property search. So you'll have dual access to both of those tools. So just in providing a bit of background information on this, CoreLogic is a company who acquired DataQuick, and they acquired DataQuick in 2014. And what happened is as these companies merged together, they realized that they had two different property search tools that basically more or less did the same thing. And so that is where you hear the DataQuick Property Finder, which they actually call Property Finder 2G, and CoreLogic, their RealQuest Professional tool. And so both of those are property search tools, and what they found and determined is that they certainly didn't need to have both of those tools. Now, from a user perspective, although they basically do the same core functionality of searching for real estate records, there are differences between those two platforms, and there are differences between the user interface of those two platforms. What they determined as a company is that they wanted to retain and keep RealQuest as the primary product and retire Property Finder. And so they've actually gone ahead and they migrated all of their customers, including us, Wealth Engine as one of their customers, from Property Finder. Now, that was something that we worked through, and so you see in this timeline here, in August we had messaged and worked with you prior to that in terms of a Property Finder going away as a tool. And what ended up happening is really we heard a lot of feedback from all of your customers that you really missed some of the key functionality within the Property Finder tool. And that primarily was the nationwide search and the ability to search by mailing address. And there were some limitations within the RealQuest platform. So what we've done is we actually shared all of your sentiments, including ours, with CoreLogic and worked with them to provide us access to both tools in the interim. And so what they're doing now in negotiating with us is they're working on adding some of these key enhancements to the RealQuest tool. And that way that it will be, that functionality that you had in Property Finder will be compatible in the RealQuest tool. So you can see here in terms of time frame, in August we made that switch. Now in September we've rolled out so you have access to both of those tools within the specialty search area. And then what's going to happen is in November is slightly different, and I want to make sure that I'm very clear on this point. So in November, we will be rolling out our core data release. And at Wealth Engine, we do a core data release basically every 4 months is our cadence. When we do that, we are updating all of our different data sources, and while we update all those different data sources, we recalculate our profiles and rescore a lot of them. And so as we make that change in November, we will be replacing the actual hard data in the search and the screening aspects of our tool with the CoreLogic data. So we've had in FindWealth 8 as real estate data sources, we've had LexisNexis, and we've also had DataQuick. And so now that DataQuick data will be replaced by CoreLogic. One thing to make clear is that it will still continue to contain all of what DataQuick has had. So as part of the acquisition, the coverage for CoreLogic is greater. So it includes all of the DataQuick information plus the additional insight and information that CoreLogic has. So that change will be happening in November. We will make sure to message that to you, and that will certainly increase the amount of matches and information that you are seeing within the search area of FindWealth 8 as well as within any screenings that you do within FindWealth 8. So that is a data source change. And then we did message this in our communication, but in terms of working with CoreLogic on these improvements to the RealQuest tool, we'll be working with them to make sure that they meet the requirements that we've set forth and explain to them that are important for our users. Their time frame is to retire Property Finder still, and that time frame right now is geared towards Q1 of 2016. So that is a target date of when you will see within the specialty search the Property Finder going away, okay? And so just want to make sure that everyone's kind of aware of what we're working with here in terms of a rolling timeline. So just a little bit about CoreLogic in case you don't know, but CoreLogic as a company, it is a real estate data source. It is known as kind of the premier supplier for real estate coverage and mortgage information, and it includes an awful lot of data, but it's mainly data that is sourced from county assessors' records, from tax records, and from other information such as appraisals or multiple listing services. And so with that information, there's a huge geographic footprint. This is a little bit about what I talked about that coverage improving. So you can see here just in terms of the difference in coverage between CoreLogic and DataQuick, we have a 99.9% coverage on the assessor data within CoreLogic compared to the 88% coverage within DataQuick that we had. You can see in terms of the deeds and transactions, that coverage is also being improved. And so you'll see those changes, as well as foreclosure information. So we have foreclosure information now as we roll out the changes in November with CoreLogic. We'll have increased coverage for different counties. And so just to see this in a little bit of a different breakdown here and looking at the total coverage, as you see here, nationwide coverage. So just to show you in green, everything in green are all of the areas where we have increase in coverage. And so this is just two things. This is obviously increased coverage between those two tools. So as you're using those tools within the specialty search area, you will be able to find more coverage in using the RealQuest tool than the DataQuick Property Finder tool. But this also is more related to certainly when we make those changes in November to the core data as well. There'll be increased coverage when you're doing searches on individuals at that time frame. So really, in terms of additional insights that the RealQuest information does include, this is going to include more historical transactions, commercial properties, and also agricultural and land values. And so there's greater insight there. In terms of the report comparison, so right now you'll have access to all of these. You'll have access to the CoreLogic reports and the DataClick reports. There are property details that are very similar between both. You will see the differences in coverages in particular as you start to do some searches. So a lot of the things that I've done just in comparing those two tools are looking up the same name or the same individual in both tools and seeing that there are more details in terms of coverage on the CoreLogic, but certainly some of the functionality within the DataClick tool of searching by mailing address or nationwide search are greater. But you'll be able to play around with both and use both to your desire right now. So just to talk about these known differences and kind of iron these out for you. So these are some of the key items that are different between those two tools and platforms. And this is what we've specifically talked about with CoreLogic. So what they are working on right now is addressing these issues within the RealQuest tool. So on their roadmap right now is adding in the search by mailing address, adding in the nationwide search capability, and then one of the key things that I know has been a big pain point is in the RealQuest tool you have to search by county. So they are removing that so that it enables you to search by name, city, and state. We've also noticed some performance issues with the multiple search in RealQuest. That's something that they are also working on that's on their roadmap. In terms of the other two items I have listed here, the neighborhood demographics report, that is a report that you have within the DataClick Property Finder right now. That is a report that is lacking from RealQuest, and right now that is not on their roadmap. So that is a known difference still. And then just in terms of functionality differences, obviously as you look at the two platforms, you will see differences between the flows and the clicks and the user interface in general. But I do want to just make it clear that they have been very receptive in working with us and apologetic about the performance of RealQuest and it not having some of these key capabilities that the DataClick Property Finder had. So with that, I want to go ahead and talk about a few of the enhancements that we've made within FindWealth 8 as well. And some of these, so a lot of times some of the changes and things that we make within the platform can be little things that aren't that exciting or that might not necessarily be noticed by everyone. But I do want to touch on a few enhancements. And so these are some key enhancements we've made within My Results. And for those of you that may not know, My Results is the key tab kind of within the FindWealth 8 product that enables you to basically view any saved results that you've searched on, view any of your saved screening folders, so any screenings that you've done through Express screening or through our batch screening process. It's also where you'll view any of your prospect lists. So prospect lists that you may have pulled will be delivered within My Results. So My Results is a very complete area that basically has all of your saved searches. And looking at just some of the functionality within My Results, we realized we needed to improve some of these areas. And as we continue to work on improvements to My Results, these are some of the key things we've touched on lately. So we've expanded the dialog boxes. So there's a number of different dialog boxes that come up within the user experience in My Results when you use the custom export features in My Results to create your own custom exports, when you use the custom display feature to change the actual display of My Results and how all of your fields are laid out and organized, and when you go ahead and choose a custom profile as well. So when you're actually changing your profile on an individual and deciding which data sources you'd like to have on that profile for printing purposes, for example. So we've improved those dialog boxes. The other thing is the Express custom template creation. So when you're using Express screening, we have a wizard that basically walks you through creating your custom template. We've made some improvements to that to help just kind of streamline the process. And then within My Results, so some of the key things are certainly moving all of your results around between different folders and subfolders. We've added a more clear feature for the drag and drop functionality between folders. That's something that I think is very important and that we'll continue to make sure is refined and easier to use. I'll show you that in a bit here, just how you can best utilize that tool. The other thing is certainly filters. So we have a number of different filters within the My Results area that enable you to drill down on different attributes in your profiles and search across folders for different attributes. So we've made some improvements to the filters, in particular the different operators, those operators for the fields such as I mentioned here, attributes and planned giving, just to make it a little easier from a user perspective as you're using those filters. And then in terms of just some of the other visual improvements that you may have noticed, we certainly talked already about the attribute list within the prospects, making that easier to see all of the attributes we have available in those subcategories. We've also created the specialty search homepage. So as part of the rollout and changes with the property finder tools, we went ahead and created a homepage under our specialty search, which really helps you understand what some of those other tools are that are available for you. I think a lot of customers, because they are, and users, because they are hidden within the specialty search area, you don't necessarily know that you have access to all of these features. So, creating the homepage enables you to get a little bit more insight into specifically what these property search tools are, what Pinpoint is. Pinpoint is certainly searching for stock insider information. Newsroom's another tool that we have. So you can see that a little bit more now having that homepage added. We have made improvements to the printed profiles as well. So when you're printing out your profiles, you'll see some updates in the charts and displays there. And then one of the key things too is, there was a difference between our prospect list profiles and profiles that are searched within FindWealth 8. We reordered the names on the prospect list to make sure that they were streamlined and followed the first name, middle name, last name order sequence, which is the same sequence we have on our profiles that are searched or are provided through doing a screening. So there's more consistency there between the prospect list profiles and your other profiles. There have been some other fixes in terms of kind of bug fixes, and I do just want to point these out. There are constantly little things that we are tweaking, and in doing that, we did make some improvements to our error messaging in a number of different areas in FindWealth 8, but certainly with the failed login to make it a little bit more clear to our users when you are having problems logging into the site. We also had a fix around the estimated giving capacity feature. So some of you may remember us rolling it out earlier last year and talking certainly about this feature, but we do have, if you don't know, we do have the ability to use the estimated giving capacity and customize your formula within FindWealth 8. And with that, we did notice there was a bug with the recalculation when adding in supplemental information. So that has been fixed. It was a slight bug there. The other thing is with address search. So address search is a great search tool within FindWealth 8. What we did is we did notice we had some issues with spacing and limitations around results in the address search. So we went ahead and increased the limitations from 25 results displaying there on one page for address search. So those are just some of the key bug fixes and other improvements that we've made most recently within FindWealth 8. What I want to do now is jump into our demo and take you through some of these specific things that I just talked about. So let me go ahead and share my screen. And as I do that, what I want to do is certainly encourage you. I know some of you have been submitting questions, and so we will take the time to address those questions at the end. So thank you for doing that. And let me go ahead and log back in here because I have logged out. So I'm just going to log in to my instance here of FindWell State. And the first thing I want to do is, you see as I come in here to the tool, I'm landing within the search tab, okay? And so what I want to do really is kind of talk to you first about WeProspect and suppression. So jumping over into the prospecting tab. Now, one thing to note is, as users, some of you may have not purchased any WeProspect right now, but you will see that you should have access to this tab. So even if you haven't purchased any credits towards WeProspect, you should be able to access the tab and be able to play around with the query and build some lists even if you are not purchasing those lists. So with that here in my prospecting tab, I'm going to go ahead and show you how suppression works. What I'd like to do first is just show you the attribute list that I already talked about here. But as I scroll through, you can see all the different categories and all the subfields. And if I go ahead and I click something such as, real estate, and I want to look at property type, I can click that, and you can see that it's automatically jumps me back into my query builder to that specific attribute. So it's an easy way to jump around and back and forth rather than clicking directly into this area and then searching for that particular subcategory I'm looking for. So that is our attribute list. And the next thing I really want to do is show you the suppression uploader. So as I come over here, you'll notice a few different things. I've got my usage reports for WeProspect. I have my prospect list so I can access, which are going to take me into the My Results section. And then I have suppression lists. So suppression lists are my suppression list manager. This is where you can see all these different lists that I've gone ahead and uploaded before as my suppression lists. I can see the status of these lists once I've uploaded them, and so what this is actually showing me in the status column is the percentage of match to these suppression lists. So obviously, as I talked about before, as you upload a list, we are actually matching to those records on the back end to our core data. And from there, you're able to see exactly what we're matching to. So it is possible that we may not match to everyone, but you'll see at least the status of percentage matched here. And from here, I can go ahead and just upload a new list. So this will take me through the suppression upload wizard. And I'm going to go ahead and do this, let's see, we'll say Washington area event. So I'm going to we'll just do that. And then we're going to browse here. And let's see, I've got a list here that I have already saved. And this is going to be in Excel format. So now I'm going to map my fields. Now what I want to show you is my list that I had already pulled here had my name information and my address information. You can see that we've automatically tried to map some of these fields. And what I did notice is that I need to go ahead and change some of these fields because it looks like my address 2 column needs to be relabeled. I want to just relabel this as city, and this is state. And I'll make sure I have my zip code. So now that I've got everything, what's nice about this too is that it shows you your first 5 records, okay? So you can make sure that everything's aligned. And now I'll go ahead and hit next. And what happens now is it's really taking a look at this list, and now I can see that it's going to go ahead and complete my file. And I can go ahead and click back to my suppression list. So here it's actually already done it, and you can see my Washington area event, my number of contacts. I had a 99% match rate. Okay, done. I've uploaded that list. Now I'm going to go ahead and start to build out my query. And let's make sure, as we do our query here within WeProspect, I'm going to search on my Washington area. And again, I want to make sure that I don't have those individuals that were at my suppression list. So let me go ahead and just turn on suppression right now. As I turn on suppression, I'm going to make sure and select that list that I just uploaded, my Washington area event list. And I actually know that I had a list here within WeProspect that I had pulled that I want to suppress against too. So let me just select those two lists. You can see how many records I've selected to suppress against. And again, this is my total maximum. So I'll go ahead and hit update. And now as I continue to build out my query, what you'll see here is the suppressed records. And that count will change as I build out my query. So I'm searching for individuals within the Washington area. I'm going to search between these ages, and I'm looking for people that are a net worth of $5 million plus. I'd like married individuals, and I want to make sure I'm returning one record per household. The other thing is I'm planning on emailing these individuals, so I want to make sure that I have contact information for emails. So as I select this, I'm selecting any email, so that's going to include business emails and phone, or personal emails, I'm sorry. And you can see here, I also would like to find people that have real estate, and I'd like people that have 2 properties. So I'm going to add that to my query. Oh, let's go ahead and actually delete, so this is part of the, let's go ahead and actually remove that from our query. I actually would like to do an interest in sports. Let's go ahead and jump into interest, and we'll go to broad groups and sports. So I'm going to add this into my query. Okay, so now you can see I've got a list of just under 2,000 individuals. I have 578 records that I've been able to suppress, and this is how many records I'm going to have after suppression. So from here I could go ahead and preview these results and take a look at them, and then I can go ahead and refine my query if I'd like. So very simple to use. Again, just making sure you choose what list you'd like to suppress against and then build your query to that list. So from there, I'm going to go ahead and actually jump over into the specialty search area. So in specialty search, which you have here, you'll notice the landing page, and you have access again to both CoreLogic and DataQuick. So just to show you what happens here is obviously if I click on either of these links, it's going to open another window, and that enables me to do any kind of search. Search for an individual by address information that you see here, search for an individual by name, and if I actually just jump back here, I'm going to click into DataQuick. And so I recommend that you certainly play around and utilize both of these tools while you have access to them. And from here, you can go ahead and do your nationwide search, certainly within the DataQuick tool here. And so you'll just see, for example, if I was to search for this individual, I'm going to search for, put his first name in here too, Daryl Crate. And I'm going to do a nationwide search for him. I know that his primary address is in Massachusetts, but this is the power of DataQuick and Property Finder and what all of you really were missing. And so you can see that I'm able to find out that he has some other addresses. It might be him. I do have some different middle initials here. But anyway, it enables you to certainly do that nationwide search and then drill into those real estate records. I'm not going to spend time teaching you on how to use these tools today. What I will say is that we have a great video within our knowledge base section. So if you do a search there, you can find videos on how to use the CoreLogic Property Finder property search and how to use DataQuick. So those are there for you to utilize. The next thing I just want to jump over is to show you some of the enhancements I talked about within my results, and then we'll take time for questions. So within the My Results section, one of the key things I talked about was certainly how you have all of this robust information coming in. And so here I have my online results. These are from searches that I've done and saved. I also have some folders from screenings that I've conducted, and I have my prospect list section. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is actually create a new folder, and this I can do just by clicking the plus sign here. So I'm going to be trying to segment out individuals that I've done searches on that are P2G2s. So I'm going to go ahead and name this folder, and let me just go ahead and try and rename here. Okay, I think my screen's just acted up a little all of a sudden. So let me just try and refresh here. Okay. All right, let's try that again. So I'll just name this folder as my P2G2 and save that. And now you see that folder's been created. So now if I'm in my online folder, I'm going to go ahead and show you the filtering functionality and how I can go ahead and drag and drop those filters that I select into my folder I've just created. So coming over into Tools, Tools is where you're going to find most of your action items. So here I can apply a filter, and I'm going to be searching for P2G. So if I scroll down to my P2G, I'd like to select an operator. So this is where, as I mentioned, some of the changes we've made to filters. We've changed some of these operators for the specific fields to make sure that they actually make sense and you're able to functionally do everything you'd like to do while you're filtering. So searching for all my P2G2s, I'm going to go ahead and do this filter. And I'm making sure I include only this folder, so you can see that was an option there. So I've got 45 records. My filter is applied. And now what I can do is go ahead and select all of these records. You'll notice this column here. So this is what we've added. As I hover over this column, you'll see the hand icon. And what you'll see is drag to folder. So this is our drag and drop. So once I have all of those selected, all I need to do is get this hand icon, click with my mouse, and then I'm simply going to drag these into this folder I've created over here. And as I do that, you can see that all of those filtered records have now moved over into this P2G2 folder that I have created. So what I'm going to do is actually just remove my filter. I can do that by clicking the X here. And so that is now showing everyone that's in my online folder. And as I come over here to my P2G2 folder that I created, I can see all of those 45 records for those individuals that I had filtered on, all moved into that folder. So it's a great tool now. It's a little bit more clear for you as a user to understand what you're doing and how you're moving the data around. The other thing I wanted to show you is some of the customizations. So for example, customized display, as I mentioned. So as you come in here, we've made this a bit more readable. It's wider now, and so you're able to really see all of the different options and columns here. And as you customize your display, you can choose what order you'd like everything to be displayed in. So that's a great feature and tool if you're not aware of that. The other thing is certainly the custom export. So same kind of thing as the customized display, but managing your custom exports and creating a custom export that you can use further. So if I just go ahead and create my own export here, I can choose specifically what fields I'd like to include in that export. So maybe I don't really want a robust export that includes everything and I want to only include certain attributes. I can go ahead and do that. All of these are in alphabetical order, so I can easily find what I'm looking for. So I'm just going to close out of that. But you would just walk through the process of hitting next and creating that. And then that would be an option here, as you see within my export tool. We have a number of different exports. That custom export you created would show up here within your export list. And the other thing I just want to touch on is certainly the idea of profiles and creating kind of that custom profile. I think that's a great tool to be able to utilize. So if I click on last name here and I'm in this profile, I can go ahead and manage my custom profile. And this is really helpful if you have an individual that matches to an awful lot of data sources and creates a very long profile. I can create a custom profile here, and we'll do eBeth again for short. Elizabeth gets too long sometimes. So from here I can choose in particular what data sources I'd like to include on my profile. So here I'm just going and selecting some at random for this individual. And you can see I've got all of the different sources listed here. The other thing that I have is the ability to, as I just move those, let's actually get some other sources in here too. Okay. So now what I have the ability to do is select the quality of match. So this is really a great feature if you don't know about it, but it is a great feature to be able to say I'd only like to include high quality of matches on this profile, or I'd like to include mediums and highs. So go ahead and finish. And then you have that custom profile created. So anytime you go to then print out a profile or pull up a profile, you can go ahead and actually pull up that custom profile so it's saved for future reference. And that's right here. If I download profile, you'll see it now, eBeth, here it is. So I can go ahead and select that format. So those are just some of the key enhancements I wanted to touch on today. And with that, we'll go ahead and turn it over to questions and take some time for them.
Okay. Well, thank you, Elizabeth. And as Elizabeth mentioned, and I had in earlier in the webinar, if you have any questions, please feel free to post them to the Q&A box, and we'll try to pull them off and answer as many as we can. So since you finished with FindWealth 8 enhancements, I'll start with this question. What are some of the future enhancements coming to FindWealth 8, and can you talk about those more in depth?
Absolutely. So we're constantly working on a number of different things here at Wealth Engine, and one of the key things that's exciting and is also challenging at points is certainly balancing fixing issues that we have related or improvements related to certain areas of the platform and products, and also building out new products and adding new features that we think would be great for our customers. So we're doing a little bit of both. So one of the key areas that I'm focused on right now I can share with all of you is certainly revamping the My Results section. So a lot of what I just covered, we are working on redesigning that and making it more streamlined for you, thinking about how we can, improve the different functionality there and make it more of a breathable tool that you can really use as your workbench. So that's one of the areas that we're focused on. Another one is the profiles. So we've heard a lot of feedback from customers on it's very hard to read the data within profiles. We'd like to maybe see larger font, more spacing, less spacing, be able to have more control over what we display, and have more clarity on different sections such as the real estate section. So that's another area that we're working on revamping, are the actual profile views. We've done a lot of work on that as well and making improvements. One of the things you may remember is you used to have to kind of click into each of the data sources. We added the ability to scroll through a profile so you can view all those different data sources at one time as you scroll through. So different functionality like that, those are areas we're focused on. Certainly all of those areas I would say are around user improvements and functionality for your users and workflows. In terms of kind of the back-end technology, what we're doing is we're going to be revamping some of the infrastructure so that we can handle larger screenings through Express, for example. And one of the other key areas we're really excited about is working through the modeling features of WeAnalyze and building in some visualization for our models and analytics. So more to come on that, but there's a lot of really exciting things going on right now.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to go back to the beginning when you talked about suppression. We had a few suppression questions come in about the suppression. So is there an additional cost to use the suppression in WeProspect?
So is there any additional cost? No. There is not any additional cost to use suppression. So suppression is included as part of WeProspect, and you do have to obviously have WeProspect credits and be able to download lists and use that. But suppression comes as part of WeProspect. Again, I mentioned this before, but we really built this out because we saw this as a necessary feature to WeProspect. We now see the product of building prospect lists to be more complete, having suppression as an added feature.
Okay. So when you're uploading a suppression list, what is the unique ID that you can use to ensure that you're not pulling the same people?
Okay, yeah, great question. So a little bit about how suppression actually works. So as I mentioned, the fields that are required for suppression are just simply using your name and address information. So what essentially we're doing is we're basically doing a match to whatever lists you upload, so to those names and addresses. We're almost doing a screening if you think about it that way. So you send us that list, we basically kind of screen that list or compare that list to our core data. And when we do that, we match to our core data set. So you don't have to worry about uploading IDs. We use our own kind of internal IDs on the back end to match individuals. But all that matching is done by name and by address. And like I said, if we find an individual that matches to one address and we have a profile on them that's a complete profile and links to other addresses, we're also going to suppress all of those other addresses so that their complete profile is suppressed. So hopefully that helps in explaining a bit about how it works.
Okay. I have a DataQuick question. Do we know when DataQuick Property Finder will be retired?
So we are, we're working closely with them, and I can tell you that, as I mentioned before, we want to make sure and ensure that they are able to bring back the key things of nationwide search, the search by mailing address, and the ability to not enter a county when you're searching. So those are the key things. They are predicting and planning on having all of that done in Q1 of 2016. We will be working with them to ensure that that's all done, and at that point in time we'll make sure we message out to users about that time frame and when we plan on removing the property finder. But it is just important that everyone knows that it will be going away, but the plan is certainly to work and bringing back some of those key features and making those available within the RealQuest tool.
Okay. How do all these changes affect the overall data sources that we use for real estate?
Yeah, great question. So again, we touched on specifically the changes that will happen in November. So in November, we'll be doing our core data release, and with that core data release, we'll be updating our data sources. It's at that point in time that we're going to do kind of a swap of the DataQuick and the CoreLogic data. And I shouldn't really say a swap because it still is including all of that DataQuick information. So it's really an enhancement, if you think about it that way. We will be expanding our real estate coverage in November when we make this change. And as we expand it, we'll have all of that coverage that we talked about today from CoreLogic.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Elizabeth. Actually, in respect for everyone's time, we've pretty much run out of, this ends our webinar for today. But all of your questions and comments that you posted will definitely be passed on to Elizabeth and the rest of our team here to address immediately. If you have any further questions, please feel free. You can email Elizabeth Schiffman, and you can find her bio and her details located on your screen under speaker bio. So just as a reminder, we will be sending you the slides and recording for today's presentation within 24 hours of this presentation. And we also, in order for us to be able to create more valuable events like this, we ask that you please take the survey at the end of this session. It should pop up in your window as soon as we hit close. And finally, to learn more about WealthEngine, please visit us at www.wealthengine.com. And thank you for joining us today.